are twin monsters that has continued to blight our election process are the challenge of violence and, of course, vote buying. If we address this issue at the level of the community, getting community and youth leaders involved, or setting the stage for such a conversation, but rest assured that it will have far-reaching implications for our electoral process. Today on the program, Nigeria Decides, we commence our conversation using this as a major issue that needs to be addressed. I have with me in the studio the Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, our frontline civil society and environmental activist, Reverend David Ogolo. Reverend Ogolo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. G.
We also have with us here in the studio a community youth leader, civil society activist, Comrade Joseph Bali. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
Reverend Ogolo, let me begin with you. These are twin monsters that have continued to blight our electoral process, talking about the challenge of electoral violence and then the twin monster of vote buying or financial inducement in an election. Using the community model as a case study, how do you think these key challenges can be, reduced to the bare minimum, even though we know it can't be completely eradicated?
Again, thank you for, focusing on these two key issues, particularly against the background that we are as few days left now to the general elections. As you know, everybody wants to see a free and fair election. And one of the key challenges to achieving this is to create the enabling environment. And so some of the actions that we have seen happens at the community level. So awareness is very important. And we've seen that election violence is a big threat to having free and fair elections. And one of the things that causes this election violence is when you don't create the enabling environment for people to be secured. And once people are not secured, they tend to stay at home. And when they stay at home, you don't have much people participating in the process. And once people don't participate in the process, the tendency is that either you don't have enough people to say that they have elected whoever they emerged from the election. So one of the key things that we're seeing at the community level is that people tend to move towards violence when they see that their candidate is losing. And so the best way to secure that not happening is to create much more security in the environment. And then vote buying. It is when people see that when they want to buy vote, just to enhance the possibility for their candidate to win the election. So those two things, like you rightly noted, are two key challenges of general election. And one of the ways to get them resolved is what we have carried out yesterday. And I hope that my colleague, Comrade Joseph Bali, will speak, who was the convener. And one of the things that came out very clearly was that we created an awareness, and that awareness is one of the first foundation that you create to solve this kind of two problems. And it's not peculiar to Nigeria alone. If you look at elections all over the world, election violence is a common thing that happens. But what you do, and that's exactly what you're doing right away, is to create an awareness on how to overcome this.
Reverend David Ogolo, to an extent, the current Naira swap has a huge impact in the unbanked area, which is the rural setting. But don't you think this coming election, they might want to give in to vote buying, considering the hardship they've gone through? A good number of them have not been able to swap their notes up to today. What do you think?
Well, I think that's also part of the, well, it's a big challenge. We experienced it yesterday when we were at the Gele community. We saw the challenge, we can experience it. We see the community people also experiencing it. It's definitely going to affect the election, no doubt. But now, what do you do? I think the frustration is also opportunity for them to take their decision, because they will be a victim for this, whatever that is happening now. A political party will pay a price for it, because people are going through a very difficult phase of their life. And I don't think there will be no price for it, whatever that is happening now.
Okay. Comrade Bali, you are the director of Ijaw Leaders Forum. You convened that Ijaw Multi-Stakeholder Summit to drive these two issues of vote buying and election-free violence. What informed the decision? And from the engagement that you had, what would you say is the success story in terms of the participation in Saturday's election? Because my colleague just asked a question. The community and rural areas, they are unbanked areas.
True.
And then the level of security is also a huge question mark. So that means that this level of governance is a veritable tool or platform for some of these ills that are against the electoral process to manifest in a very geometric dimension. Let's get to perspectives.
Okay, first, thank you very much for having me. What informed that program of yesterday was the 2020 election.
2023 election?
No.
2020 election.
What happened?
Okay, in 2020.
In 2020, that informed.
As a result.
Yeah, it was as a result of the 2020 election.
Okay.
For us not to have a repeater of what happened in the 2020 election around our areas.
Okay.
Because in the 2020 election, we lost a woman as a result of this election violence. People wanted to hijack ballot papers and materials that was going to one of our communities. And the military gunboat that was escorting they didn't know that the military gunboat was behind the election material.
Was watching the election?
He was following the election material.
Materials, okay.
But though, you know, the gunboat is always a little bit farther down.
From the
So immediately they wanted to block the material. They started, there was a shootout. And peradventure, the bullet, stray bullet
hit the lady.
hit the lady, and the lady died on the spot. The lady has about 6 children.
Wow.
So that was a very sad moment in our area.
Okay.
So because of that, some of us as youth leaders from that region said we cannot continue like that, because at first, in that election, none of our person was contesting. And we were like, what was the intent? What was the rationale? What's your gain in doing such, going to steal material for, not that your person is even contesting at first, and you have lost a life, our daughter, our mother from that region. So we were very pained, and we say, okay, we will not allow a repeater, we'll call stakeholders, let's discuss, let's chart a way forward. That there's no need for that. You understand?
Yeah.
We need to understand that election is not war. Everybody has a right to campaign, and everybody has a right to vote for their choice. That was what informed that meeting of yesterday, so that we can have fresh ideas on how to mitigate such issues that may come up in this 2023 election. So yesterday's event was a success. As all stakeholders came, they shared their views, and for me, we achieved a lot yesterday.
Okay, Reverend, you know, it looks like if we don't move away from talking to actually put structures in place to help the community, you know, have that destiny in their hands, it may just be like, you know, it's the usual practice of hosting events, conferences, summits, seminars, for us to have that conversation. What do you make of that as a challenge? Is there any way on the practical level where we can get these community people empowered to actually take action against vote buying, against violence?
Yeah, that's exactly what we did yesterday. Another creative way we brought into the whole process yesterday was to have a declaration. You know, when you go to meeting, people try to come with their own suggestions, their own recommendations. After exhaustive conversations around the issues, you know, people felt very bad, particularly with the background, what Comrade Bali said, a woman who had children, we lost this woman, and now nobody's talking about the 6 children. And one of the key highlights yesterday was to send a message to the wife of the governor, who happens to be one of those who supported that process yesterday. We believe very strongly that the children that are left behind, we all have responsibility to see how they can be taken care of. And you know, it's very painful to have your mother, not because she was sick, not because anything happened to her, just because of a string bullet coming from an election violence, and because people want to hijack ballot box just to advance a narrow interest that in the long run doesn't really help them. So for me, it was a turning point. But how did we come about to making sure that it doesn't repeat himself? Like, one of the things that came out very strongly was to see that using Gele Gele as a kind of a platform, as a reference point against election violence. So we came out with a declaration yesterday, which is the Gele Gele Declaration Against Election Violence and Vote Buying. It's very historic, it is very innovative, it's very creative, it's a good message. That declaration will be released out today, and hopefully it will help raise an awareness about the danger of election violence to our polity, and at the same time raise consciousness of the need for people to begin to mobilize at the community level to overcome this challenge. And how to mobilize is getting the community to take ownership. And that's what I saw yesterday. I saw women with their children, about 2-year-old children, mobilizing themselves to come from the inner creek, to come to Gile to the town hall, to get engaged in the conversation. And one striking thing that came out from that conversation yesterday, normally before, when you go to community mobilizations like that, once they start sharing food, you see people shouting, crying, looking for food. But you see these guys, people were so organized yesterday. It tells me that the consciousness is increasing. And then another thing that came out very strongly that was very infectious. I say infectious in the sense that I saw a young man who was taking the posters around. And I asked him, I said, this poster that you are putting around, which political party are you supporting? The young man responded to me that, look, I'm looking for my livelihood. I don't care which end of the political party. It's the party they've paid me to do this job, and I'm doing it. If LP come, Labour Party come, and they pay me to do the job, I will do it for them and put their poster. If PDP come and they pay me, I will do it for them. And then if APC come, I will do it. I don't care who wins. That again resonates with me. That it tells me that people are beginning to raise an awareness about the consciousness that you don't need to kill yourself. Because ultimately at the end of the day, the guys that perpetuate, and that's one thing that came out very strongly from the Gile Declaration, and that we're calling on the US, we're calling on the UK, and we're calling on the international community to place on sanction those key political party people that promote election violence, and also ban them from traveling out of the country after the election. Because in most cases, these people that promote this violence, as soon as the election ends, they are out with their children and their wife. They don't suffer the damage, because every election violence has a damage to the system. It brings the economy down. Either there is burning or somebody is dead, like this woman, particularly in the Gile community. And if you look across Nigeria, it's the same story. And it's very painful. And so that's why we think that we must commend Bale and his team who have convened this meeting at the community level to raise the awareness and remind the people of the pain. People can easily move on. And yesterday, it was an opportunity to reflect back what happened in 2020. And then I think that it again helped to raise the consciousness that it should never happen again. And I think that's the spirit behind the Gile Declaration.
This one nice to you. To an extent, you are a young man.
Thank you.
And you have youth that are of different political parties.
Very true.
And he just made a striking point that we have political parties that sponsor violence in that region. So what are you doing in place as a youth leader to ensure you have youth on the same level? Let them be on the same page as we approach the polls on Saturday. Yeah,
thank you very much, sir. Well, the only answer to that was that was the exact reason why we convened that meeting yesterday. Because the Joint Youth Leaders Forums is made up of youth leaders who also belong to different political parties. So it's obvious that everybody, there's an attitudinal change and there's a consciousness for everybody from both APC, PDP, Labour, APGA to come together to say, okay, let us organize a project, a program that we are to mitigate election violence. And
that will say no to violence.
Yes, that will say no to violence in our region. It means that we are all working together now and we are all in the same page. Okay,
Reverend, let's quickly look at this. Even though INEC is the umpire for an election like what we're expecting on Saturday, it doesn't have the capacity to really go after election offenders. What do you mean? Because when we talk about election violence, you find it happen every now and then. I mean, when you go around the country, you want to do a research work on it. I mean, you'll be amazed the feedback that you will get, and then how it has blighted our electoral process, scaring people away, and then not engendering that environment where the right candidate emerge. Because by the time people are scared to come out, those who want to perpetrate manipulation and skew the electoral process, they take advantage of that vacuum. INEC is supposed to have the capacity to also go after these guys, but it's as though INEC is incapacitated in going after election offenders. What do you make of this as a challenge in our electoral process?
Well, that's one of the motivation for us from our organization, the African Network for Environment and Economic Justice. And one of the key things why we have to support Igbale and his group was, particularly from our own perspective, from our own project, that we must mainstream anti-corruption initiative in our political process. Because the motivation, because what is the motivation? Is benefit. And that is the reason why people want their candidate to win by every means possible, because in the long run, they want to benefit from the political process. And so we think that the only reason why people are mobilizing to commit election violence and with the insecurity in the environment and to even compromise the umpire is to have their own benefit. So one of the things we have done is that through the project we've been supported with is which is scale project strengthening and civil advocacy and local engagement, and that's exactly the engagement we have had with Igbale and his group, is to deepening the engagement in a way that we begin to ask politicians to understand the long-term implication. If you don't mainstream anti-corruption reforms in the polity, it will be difficult for you at the end of the day who you elect, because the capacity to elect a candidate that will represent your interests depends on what happened at the local level. So if the people don't have the opportunity to participate in the election because of election violence or vote buying, then you could imagine what the outcome will be. And that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. And so to be proactive in engaging this process, and that's the reason why we decided that, look, what do we do? And that's one thing that I found very interesting at the meeting yesterday. Sorry, I have to take you back to Gile community yesterday. Now, you see, it is very interesting to see that the wife of the governor is concerned because perhaps, you know, he's from the area, he's an Ijaw woman. And so it's very, I am sure that the death of that woman strikes her. And then when I saw our delegations yesterday also participating in this conference, I was very impressed, because ordinarily one of the things that they would have been interested in is to see how their political party win. But to participate in such a multi-stakeholder forum where discussions were taking place on how to mitigate such things not happening again at that local level was very interesting and timely. Now, what can agency like INEC do? That's something that needs to be looked into. INEC ordinarily would have put in place a system that will help to avoid election rigging and to avoid vote buying, and then to make sure that at least the people that are coming to participate in the election, they are protected by collaboration with security agency. But most cases, when this happened, these security agencies will turn a blind eye, and then these actions are perpetuated. But I think one of the best ways to protect the environment, like I mentioned to the community yesterday, no one person can come outside from Gile to come and perpetuate crime violence without the collaboration with the Gile community. Yeah. And the youth agreed with me yesterday. If there is a consensus, like we have agreed via the Gile declaration, that no to election violence, no to vote buying, whoever that emerge after the election on Saturday, let it be. Election is not do or die. This, if PDP or APC or LP or any of the political party, ABGA, wins the election, it's only 4 years. And if you are not satisfied, at the next 4 years, you have the opportunity again to vote that political party out. And so our mission is to ensure that we have a free and fair election, where whoever that emerge enjoys the benefit, the confidence of the entire population.
All right, Bale, let me quickly take you on this. It has to do with the fact that in this election, one very striking thing is the fact that there's a resurgence of an awareness, particularly at the level of the youths. People have said the consciousness of the youths, if it's translated into actual votes, the youths would have been able to take back Nigeria and put it on the path of peace, progress, and development. How feasible is this as far as the 2023 election is concerned, from your youth engagement and interaction?
Thank you very much, sir. From my own engagement so far, I think the youth are very, very ready. They are angry, and they are hungry to take back Nigeria. Because if you see what is happening everywhere, ordinarily, if you look at the level of registration, the level of participation in the process.
Yeah.
It's not at start, even in the 2020 election.
Okay.
You see everywhere people are talking. Discussions are going, even in marketplaces, in the bus, even in local communities, even in our communities. People are discussing this election. It's obvious that when people begin to discuss a particular issue, it shows that they are interested and they want to participate in that process. So for me, what is happening now is that there is a revolution through the ballot that wants to go on in Nigeria. And I believe it will change the political landscape of this country. And I think the Nigerian youth, they have risen, they have woken up, and they are ready to take back this country.
Reverend, you share the sentiments?
Well, yes, definitely. It's all the expectation of everybody that at least the youth is rising up, and you can't doubt that. And you have seen that manifesting either in some ad hoc challenges that we have gone through in the past. For example, the NSAS, the key lesson from the NSAS was youth who were very frustrated with the system. They're frustrated with the establishment. They're looking for a way to take back the system. But the question is that, are they prepared? Yes. If you say they are prepared, how do they demonstrate it? This election will tell. And, you know, like I say to people, you know, it's one thing to say one thing, it's another thing to walk the talk. And this election provides opportunity for the youth to walk the talk. Because, like my friend rightly noted, are you sure? Like, that's exactly what we said yesterday. And that with the scarcity of Naira, with no money anywhere, and you see a politician coming with about 5,000 Naira new note, will you be able to resist the temptation without collecting the 5,000 and vote your candidate? And the response yesterday was very clear. We collect the money, we vote our choice. Did you hear that?
Yes.
We collect the money, it's our money.
We vote our choice.
And that's, for me, is a really strong message. And it was coming from the youth who was also participating in the section yesterday. So the youth are really prepared and they are committed in going forward. But the question is that once the youth are there, will they be able to deliver? That's another thing. Okay. And we hope, let's get there first. But the key thing, as a matter of fact, is to provide the enabling environment for them to participate. We are saying no to violence, because violence will not allow the youth to participate in the political process. And that's why our project is very interesting. A project where we're supporting local community, a project where we're supporting local voices. And I want to say that more support needs to come from government. More support needs to come from organizations that are private sector. And I want to thank the ITV, because providing this platform for this to happen, for this conversation to happen, is something that is very positive. Because without support, this can never happen. Without the support yesterday, that conversation would never have happened. We are able to do the support we provided because of the support we're receiving from the USAID through Palladium for the support for the SCAPE project. We taking on the anti-corruption agenda into the politics. That couldn't have happened yesterday. Okay. And if we are not raising this question that don't collect money and don't vote your candidate, it's a wrong thing to collect money and you compromise the choice you were to make. Because at the end of the day, you suffer the consequence. And I asked them a question yesterday. Will it be good you collect money and then the road to Gelegele, are you happy with it? The consensus yesterday was that they were not happy with the road leading to Gelegele. Okay. And that if the road is not going to be tied, it will continue to undermine their development. And that's why I told them there is a connection between you collecting money and the road not being tied. Yeah. I'm only using the road as a kind of a metaphor in this analysis. But the ultimate goal is that every time, and this is the message to Nigerians and Edo people, when you are going to the pool on Saturday, be very careful. Like they say in the scripture, you know, salvation doesn't come easily. There is a difficult time. It's a hard time. There is a temptation time. But if you are able to resist that temptation, you will achieve the crown of life. That crown of life on Saturday is for you to vote your choice, irrespective of the challenge and the intimidation we have faced in the recent days. But your decision to take action, just vote your choice. If people come around you to offer you this Naira that is now scarce today, you need to buy Naira.
Of course.
And Naira is scarce now. Naira is very scarce.
We're used to buying hard currencies.
Yes, exactly.
The dollars, the pounds, and all of that.
And I give you an example of that. Yes. I had 100 euro that I've been protecting for the past 1 year or 2 years. You know, 100 euro normally was supposed to be 70,000 naira or 80,000 naira.
Yes.
So I was in Abuja. Here, me and my daughter, we were stranded. We have no naira, but I have the 100 euro in my wallet. And so my daughter said, let's go to the Mala place and change it. Behold, we got to the Mala place. And when we got there, the Mala man said, do you have dollar? I said, no, it's euro. He said, no, dollar is preferable, but I can manage this your euro. But, you know, normally 100 euro is about 80,000 naira.
Yes.
He said, but unfortunately, this naira you are seeing, this new naira, 1,000.
It's more valuable than the euro.
So instead of giving me 80,000 naira, I'm only going to give you 45,000 naira.
Jeez, that's half of the money.
Wow.
And I lost 30,000, 35. And you know, and because I needed the naira, and because it's what I can use. And the utility value of the euro is not there.
It's not there.
So I decided to exchange. And then my friend was sitting beside me. Said, no, you can't. I said, look, I don't want to be stranded. And I quickly passed in and I did the exchange. And I moved on. And this is the situation we have found ourselves.
Fantastic.
But let me remind you, my brother,
there
will be price for it. On Saturday, I can assure you, what Nigerians are being taken through today, a political party will pay a price for it.
Fantastic. But what's your last take on this?
Yeah, for me, I think I want to also admonish our youth, even though we are confident that with the level of frustration that the youth have gone through, they are really ready to come out and vote. You understand? But my own message is that the security agencies should also be up and doing. They should give cover, give protection, both most especially for the NX staffs and for the people who are coming to vote.
Fantastic.
But I understand that the voting process, like my boss just said, there will be a price to pay by a political party.
Fantastic. Reverend Gola, I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Comrade Joseph Bahali, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's still TMI, beautiful. Sorry, it's not TMI now. We had the metamorphosis.
Nigeria Decides.
Nigeria Decides live studio of independent television. Beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning. Now, the takeout is that whatever you mismanage, you lose it.
Yes.
If you mismanage your country, you lose it. If you mismanage your vote, you lose the gains that are supposed to come from that vote.
Exactly.
The twin monsters of vote buying and electoral violence, they've blighted our election process for such a long time. But we have youths now like Comrade Joseph Bali of Ijo Leaders Forum, who's taking the lead to ensure that we reinvigorate, reorientate, and create that awareness for our community leaders, our youths, and of course the general public to take action. Saturday provides us the opportunity to take action and change the narratives. Don't give yourself to vote buying. The monies that you can't find now may be made available on Saturday. Collect the money and vote your conscience.
Exactly.
The money belongs to you. We'll take a short break now. We'll be back with you with the rest of our guests on Nigerian Decides. Don't go away.